Money is power, whether you like it or not. Women are coming into greater economic power. We want women to embrace that power. If you are not using that power intentionally, then you are in essence giving away that power. Confidence is not the prerequisite. It's the outcome. You're not going to get confident by reading 10 investment books. It's the outcome of action.
How did you actually find that process of stepping into that power?
Yes, I think it's...
Welcome to Women Who Lead. This is the podcast that I wish I'd had when I was a woman in leadership just starting out. So my friends, I have done you a big favor. I have selected some of the most inspiring women in leadership, and I've assembled them in a series of conversations where they're going to share their tips, tricks, frameworks, stories, everything to support you to bloom into the next season of your career. Welcome back to Women Who Lead. And I am so excited to have Sylvia joining me, who is it CEO and Chief Investment Officer? Is that right, Sylvia?
Yes, that's correct.
Ellevest? Yeah, beautiful. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here because, in the little pre-chat, we've just said the word Wealthcare. I know, gang, you should be as excited as I am because this is I want to skip straight there, but I'll edge us in, Sylvia.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll edge us in. So I do like to dive right into the middle, right? And just really ask you to share with us, what does it mean for you to be in bloom at work and in your life right now in the season that you're in?
For me, Ruth, to be in bloom, for me, it means being totally comfortable in my own skin.
Oh,
and really having the confidence in both work and in life to make unconventional decisions, try new things, trust my own experience, kind of my own mileage, rather than, which is what I have done for most of my life, kind of filter my decisions kind of through others' lens or the lens of what others might expect of me. And I feel that I've reached this point, and I've only done so because, I'm older and have many decades under my belt now. I've reached a point where I really no longer kind of overweight what other people think. And it doesn't mean that I don't listen. I take it as an input, obviously, but it really means that I trust myself and I value my own thinking and my own intuition.
that is so powerful, everything that you've just said there. But I have a follow-on question because I ponder this a lot, right? So I'm 46 now, which means perimenopause is in, right?
Yes.
And I can feel myself as if waking up from a dream, Sylvia,
Yes.
as the hormone levels, right? And also I happen to specialize specifically in the experiences of women in the world and all that good stuff. But tell me, is this just a rite of passage for women? Are we just pre-programmed through our hormones to be very others-focused? And then as we age, we wake up from that? Or do we think that there's what's your view there? Do you think that there's another opportunity available for us there?
100%. And it's a really interesting point that you bring up. And I hadn't thought about it that way, but I've now there's a lot of thoughts going through my head now. And I do think you're absolutely right. We are, I don't know if it's DNA, I don't know if it's condition, I don't know if it's societal, just expectations, right? Women are often what I call the chief care officers.
Always. Yeah.
Of everything exactly but ourselves.
Yes.
Right. And I see this in particularly with my own mother, my mother-in-law, who are in their 80s and 90s now. And they're finally, they're both widows and, they don't have anybody to take care of right now because kids are adults, right? But even then, when I will ask something as simple as, where do you want to go for dinner? I find they have a hard time expressing what they want. It's like, well, you love seafood, so let's go there. Or so-and-so doesn't eat X, Y, and Z, so let's not go there. And I'm like, no, Mom, where do you want to go? It's just I think women are so used to really thinking of others first and caring for others. And then all of a sudden they're like, it's only myself that I have to worry about. And I don't even know what those choices look like.
Right. And where do you begin? I was very fortunate to have the beginning of that kind of awakening in my early 30s, where a male friend actually asked me, he actually said, look, Penfold, because that's what he was calling me. He said, look, Penfold, don't you think that you deserve to be happy too? And I was like, and the women listening will be like, yeah, that makes sense. But of course she would think like that, right?
Right.
But I was like, but where do I okay, this was such an abstract, mind-blowing conversation. I was like, where do I begin? And he said so simply, well, you just start with making little happy choices every day. Like, okay, what would Ruth most like to have for dinner today? This or this? He was like, or even simpler, do I want to turn left down this street or right down this street? And that's honestly where I began. Like I call it Operation Ruthlessly Penfold because my middle name is actually Leslie. But that's where it began because I was like, you mean I get that? Like, are you sure? Isn't that crazy?
That is amazing. I mean, I'm so pleased to know that you started earlier. And honestly, I do think the younger generations are definitely more aware.
I can see it.
See that.
I can see it. Yeah.
Which I'm very happy to see.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But you also mentioned something there in the beginning about it's all part of the same thing about, caring what others think, needing to check. And, the transition into CEO, which I am determined to see more women make, right? But it can feel it's a bit of a shift, right? Because you're going from, first of all, conditioning as a woman, which means that we have to make sure everybody else is okay first, right?
Yes.
To then really, and I've spoken to many CEOs about this, that shift into, oh, wait, no, it's me and I make these decisions and I have to stand by. So how did you actually find that process of stepping into that power?
Yes. I think I'm still in process.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I never I was very shy as a child. I'm the daughter of immigrants in a part of this culture, in the Chinese culture. So I'm of Chinese ethnicity. It's all about humility, right? It's about not standing out, keep your head down, do the work, you'll be recognized. Like, don't raise your hand, don't make a fuss, don't draw attention to yourself.
Yeah.
And so from early on, like on my reports, I was like, oh, Sylvia's a good student, but she's just so shy. She needs to speak up more. And so from an early age, I think because of my natural sort of introverted nature, I already told myself, like, I'm just not a leader. And it's not a bad thing. It was like, oh, I'll never, it was not something I lamented. It was just, I don't want to be that. Like, I just I'm not a leader and I'm not, I'm never going to be, speaking in public. Like, that's just not my thing. Right. I love numbers. I'm very comfortable with analytics. Like, that's kind of my sweet spot. And so just from an early age, I always just felt I'm just not going to be a leader. And even when I joined Ellevest as its chief investment officer, I remember telling the CEO at the time, our founder, Sally Krawcheck, and I'm like, oh, just let you know, like, I don't ever want to be the CEO. And, I was like, hey, I think I am best as best supporting actress. Like, that's my role. Like, I don't mind being on the stage. I just don't want to be in the spotlight, and I don't want to be where the buck stops. That was my number one thing. I do not want to be where the buck stops. So I just don't want to do it. So I love being kind of just the best supporting actress. Like, that's what I love doing. And so that was just my mantra. And so when Sally needed to step down from her role, it was like, I got to make a decision fast. I don't really have time to think about it. I already, it was this tension within myself. Like, I didn't want to do this, but at the same time, I really felt, I'd been with Ellevest from the very beginning. I felt a real responsibility to the community to really carry the torch forward. There is so much work that still needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I think there's just so much potential that Ellevest has. And the work to help close the gender wealth gap is so important to me personally and to our community. It was just like, I got to do this. This is not my comfort spot, but I need to do this, right? And so I think, at the very beginning, it was very, very tactical. And as you mentioned, my number one priority was obviously our clients, our team, our shareholders, our community. It was like making sure that everyone felt good, especially with someone, as notable as invisible as Sally has been, stepping away. There was a lot of question, oh, well, what's going to happen, And so a lot of it was very like, you didn't really have time to think about what was actually happening. And you don't think about yourself as stepping into this leadership role. It's just like, let's get to work, which is in some sense, where I'm more comfortable. Like, let's roll up the sleeves. Let's figure this out. Let's, make sure, the company and every, clients are taken care of. We're pivoting our focus, our strategic focus. And so last year was just all about transition and kind of getting through that. And it wasn't, I would say, until late last year that I kind of had a moment to reflect a little bit of what it meant to be in this seat. And so I feel like I'm still processing that a little bit just because it was in many ways somewhat a sudden transition.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, I had time to like figure out, okay, what is my role going to be? And
Right.
No time to think. Like, let's just jump in and, let's get things done.
Yeah. I think sometimes, Sylvia, the universe gets tired of waiting and knows that you're like some divine force knows that you might talk yourself out of it if you have longer.
Yes, that's a good point.
So it's like, honey, because certainly that's exactly how my business was born, because it was literally like, oh no, I'm just going to close this part. So now whoopsie, you're accidentally doing it. But I honestly, what you've just said is what I hear all the time. Like, I'm not, I just don't think I'm going to be the leader, or, at every level actually of leadership too. Right. So like whether it's first leadership role, I don't know, whether it's the mid, but I'm not sure about exec, and then leading the exec, like, it's like the sort of sword falls upon you and then you're like, wait a minute, really? And so I'm just so glad that you said that, because I think so many women can find ourselves in that.
Yeah.
Right? So thank you for your honesty. Thank you for creating that space for us there to also be honest. But tell us, if we're that person right now, if I'm I just don't think I'm that leader person, not really. I think I'm more of a best supporting actor, right? Then what would you say to that version of you now? What do you see from the other side now that you're starting to land, albeit that it's still relatively new? But what would you say to that version of you now?
I would say not to let the scripts we have written for ourselves and the stories that we have told ourselves limit our options. Honestly, I think, if this hadn't happened, I would have still been very happy with the career that I've had. I don't think I would have been like, oh, darn it. I've never, I regret never having been, stretched for a CEO. Like, I don't think that would have happened. Certainly I've grown from this experience, which has been amazing. But I think it's really not allowing, what our beliefs about ourselves and what we're capable of keep us from options. And I would like to say options because, it's not, every path is not for everybody, right? But it's really about making sure you're not closing off options because of how you're feeling internally and what you've told yourself.
Absolutely agree. And actually that's at the heart of the work that I do with a lot of women in leadership. It's this kind of like shadow work. It's the like, what's the adaptations that first of all you've made to you and yourself and how you show up in order to be safe, right? Makes sense that you did that. Like who we've become is a rational reaction to the environment we find
That's
ourselves
right.
in, right? And let's get real. Who are you really underneath all
Yeah.
that? And actually, okay, so we've said that we're not this person. It's like, so for me, Sylvia, I'm like 50-50 introvert, extrovert, right? I present though in this context quite extroverted, right?
Right.
But I actually am more extroverted than I realized because and I became aware of this little voice that was like, speak to this person, say this thing. And yet before that voice was able to leap out of me, something in me was like,
No.
mm, mm, mm.
Zip.
You can't make me, right? And that's part of what got me curious was actually like, wait, like, but then what's the real me then? Right?
Yes, exactly. And, you know, I think I also had a very narrow definition of what it means to be a leader,
Mm, yes, that
which
part.
has changed. And I
Yeah.
remember like very early in my career, I was talking to one of the company's kind of internal head of people operations, you know, kind of just about career development, things like that. And she was like, I remember her saying, "Oh, Sylvia, like I think, you know, I imagine for you, like I see you running a large division, like at a
Mm,
large investment firm."
mhm.
And I remember thinking, ugh, I don't want to do that. Like that is not appealing to me at all. Like,
Right.
you know, for various reasons. And then I was just like, ugh, you know, if that's what a leader is like, I am not interested. Right. And so, and I always kind of thought of a leader as just the person at the top, you know,
Yeah.
which is just not true, first of all. But that was kind of really my definition. And so if that was my kind of lens, like I was just like, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. And then I think the other thing that I've really learned is there are so many different types of leaders. I mean, duh, right? You know this better than anybody.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, you know, especially, you know, stepping into, you know, the huge shoes of Sally and just the
Yeah.
dynamic visionary leader that she is.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me was like, "Ugh, I can never be that." And it's
Mm,
true. You know, I am not a Sally. Like I am not that kind of, that type of leader with the vision, right? I'm a different, I would say different kind of leader. And I think wrapping my head around that is also something that is a process that I've been grappling with a little bit.
yeah. I love what you're talking about because actually when I was coming up through the ranks and I looked at leaders and I looked at women in leadership even, you know, like the women that I would have worked with in the noughties and the late
Yes.
90s. And I was like, I don't want that. Right. So I
Right.
found myself actually looking and taking a lot of my leadership learnings from more like community leaders, from
Mm,
more like, you know, like other parts of the world where I was like, no, that person's embodying what I want to embody. Hang on a minute. I've been given this great big heart that cares deeply about the world around me. I can't not lead with that. Does that make me wrong? No. Okay. So how can I find a way to be me whilst also leading and actually start to then really create a form of visible leadership that the world can see, Sylvia, that actually embodies different characteristics, that we're
that's
not all
right.
the same, that some of us lead more with this and some of us lead more with that. But guess what? Leadership teams need all of it.
All of it. Yes. All of the above.
It. Yeah.
Yes. The more differences and different perspectives, I think the stronger.
Same, hard same. Now, I cannot give us enough time for Wealthcare because predominantly women are going to be listening to this. And one of the things that Sylvia and I were talking about, and this is what I really deeply believe too, is that women and others have plenty of reason to feel like the world has been harder for us,
Mhm.
right? There are many reasons for that. But standing in, taking ownership for what our experiences are And really being intentional about the kind of world that we want to co-create means coming out of any semblance of victimhood actually into really kind of like progressive solutions creation, yes. Right? Let's be intentional. Okay, so this isn't working. We can either sit back and say this isn't working, or we can say, actually, here's how we create something better. And as soon as I heard the phrase Wealthcare, I'm like, this is visionary, creating something better energy. So please tell us all about it.
Yes, I'd love to. One of my favorite topics. How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, we can run over. Don't worry about that. We'll be fine.
Got it. So I want to give a little bit of background in case your listeners don't come from the financial industry. So Ellevest, we are an investment advisory firm. We're registered with the SEC, and basically we focus on helping women and families build wealth with intention. And so we basically are a wealth management firm. And if any of your listeners are from the industry, you will know that our industry is very focused, really obsessed, I would say, with the numbers, with returns. So our job is to optimize portfolios, beat the market. And there's this notion of, hey, if we can help our clients get wealthier, wealthier clients will be happier clients, and it's a win-win all around. And what we've discovered through our work at Ellevest is that's not always the case. That even our wealthiest clients have underlying kind of a baseline kind of anxiety. And so what I realized is we shouldn't be looking just at the numbers as our measure of success. And in fact, there needs to be a more holistic approach to wealth management. One, I call it a functional, kind of expanded approach to wealth management, where yes, we are obviously working to build wealth, but what's more important is really, how do we optimize your life? How do we optimize your well-being? And particularly this, as you might imagine, resonates with women and certainly with younger generations as well. And the idea is like, hey, if you are not living your best life and having your wealth support that, then what's the point of having more of it?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And so oftentimes in the finance world, and this is where, having spent my entire career in finance, and being very comfortable with numbers, right? Sometimes the wealth optimizing answer, the right answer from a financial perspective, is not the right answer from a life optimization perspective. But in the wealth management industry, we're not trained to do that. It's like, of course, you should never pay off your low rate mortgage. You could do so much better. You can have so much more wealth if you put that money into the market and do it for the long term. That is the wealth maximizing answer that every advisor knows. But if a client is continuously feeling burdened by having this debt, and they have the ability and the capability to pay off that mortgage, what a difference that could make to that client's well-being.
Right.
And so I like to talk a little bit in the context of healthcare. It's a great corollary to healthcare, right? And, all of us know, some of the measures of excellent health is in kind of the blood tests, right?
Yeah.
Your cholesterol level and your triglycerides and your blood pressure and all this kind of stuff. We all aim for certain numbers. And, when I think about it as okay, I can go and get a blood test and I can have perfect results. And they're like, oh, Sylvia, you're in excellent health. But if I'm not able to go out on the weekend and ride my bike for 30 miles, which I love to do, and not feel so tired at the end of the day I can't go out, or if I can't lift my luggage into the overhead compartment without straining, to me, that's not a good outcome. Even though my markers might be excellent, that is not a good outcome. And so similarly, hey, if your portfolio is outperforming every year, oh my gosh, you're so successful. But if you are not living the life you want to live, if you're not optimizing your well-being, that's not a good outcome.
No.
And so we really want to focus is what is the purpose of the wealth? What is the outcome for the wealth that you have? And really creating the financial plan to support the life that you want to live.
Ooh, I love that so much, because what you're touching on here is something that we don't get to speak about enough, right? And that's where our kind of world intersects, right? In a way,
Yes.
because, well, in many ways, which it's women and, and
Right.
all the rest of it, but it's this notion of what our, like, I would call it our somatic capacity, the capacity in our body to hold whatever it is. So
Yes.
can my nervous system hold the uncertainty of a high degree of risk or a high mortgage or not? And actually,
Yes.
when we start to get into the world of almost like wealth building, even the term wealth is intimidating, because at one point you're like, well, those of us who come from more modest backgrounds, right? Like, well, then what's wealth? At what point is that, is it where, at what level do I get to in this hierarchy to feel like I've made it to someone who should be concentrating on? So I'd love us to look at that a little bit, but also just the awareness that we need to create that, look, for many of us, we are the first in our bloodline, in our lineage, that's even attempting this stuff, which means everything in your body is programmed to try to preserve the safety of your life, which means stick with what I know because it's safer. So anytime we try to do more, be more, create more, say yes to the big job, say yes to, like, many of us will unconsciously sabotage that thing and say no, because the body's like, I can't hold that.
That's right.
I can't hold it. It's too much. I'd love to hear your view on that.
Yes. I think you raise a great point. I think a lot of us have the mindset of scarcity, as you said, right? There's some, I don't know if it's like just unconsciously, like, I got to keep what I have.
Yeah.
I got to hold on to what I have because there's some scarcity involved. And so I would love for that mindset to shift to more about like living generously. Like, is there a way to think bigger?
Yeah.
As opposed to holding on to what we have.
Right.
And I think, there's so many kind of things that we've uncovered at Ellevest with respect, specifically to, why more women are sitting on the sidelines when it comes to investing, whereas like women are great savers.
We are great.
And so we are great savers. But the point is, if you're only saving and putting that money in the bank and it's not growing, like it feels safe.
Yeah.
It feels safe. Right. But the opportunity cost and the opportunity for building wealth, if you're just saving and not investing, is enormous.
Yes.
Over decades because of the compounding. And so I think it's really flipping that mindset. It's not about, women need to take more risk and women are too risk averse and that's why women are not wealthy. Like that's not the case, right? It's, women are more risk aware. They want to understand the risk and they want to understand like, I see that I'm actually leaving a lot of money on the table by doing this, right? And I think it's that realization, and also I think it's the realization that, money is power, whether you like it or not, right? And I think women are really, first of all, women are coming into greater economic power. And what we really are focused on at Ellevest is really helping women understand that there is power in their capital. I don't care how much or how little you have. You do have power in that. And we want women to embrace that power. And if you are not embracing that power and using that power intentionally, then you are in essence giving away that.
So if I'm a woman right now with a little bit of savings and I'm like, you know what could this look like for me? What really practical advice would you give someone who's in that situation about kind of where to get started? And is that something that you actually support women with in any way?
Yeah. So if you are just getting started, let's say you're, just out of college, for example, I encourage all women, regardless of whether you're whatever age and stage that you're in, if you have not started investing, like that is the number one thing.
Yeah.
Although I say before that, make sure you have built up a sufficient emergency kind of fund to cover
Yes.
expenses. So do that first. But anything that you have in excess of that, like don't keep it in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Start investing, and it does not have to be complicated. There's a lot of great platforms out there where you can invest in a well-diversified portfolio, hold it for the long term. That's really how wealth is going to be built over the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it doesn't have to be, I encourage women, sometimes they feel like, oh, well, what if I, put it all in the market on the wrong day? I don't know if there's such thing as a wrong day, but kind of like feeling that regret. And so for them, I'm like, hey, put in $10 a month. If that's all, it's all, don't feel like I've got to accumulate, $1,000 or 100,000 or whatever the number might be before I get started. Like get started now with whatever amount you have and build that habit over time. And that is going to build your confidence in terms of investing.
True. So true. Because it's like building a muscle in the gym,
That's
right?
right.
And we don't go into the gym and go and lift the heaviest weight and then think that we can just do that.
And then we're done.
Right. So and literally, I mean, I would actually say with any healthy habit, like one of my favorite sayings that I use all the time is don't try to swallow the watermelon whole, cut it into slices, right? So what's the first slice of your watermelon? If it's for wellness, it might be waking up 15 minutes earlier to give yourself a bit more, like these tiny little experiments.
Exactly.
Right? And there's and what you've just described there are like the perfect thing. Okay, maybe it's like $10 a week into something or something that you don't even feel in the beginning, but then you start to go, okay, I can actually see that this could go somewhere. This is essentially a cup, in some of our cities in America, a cup of coffee.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think I love kind of just the small habits.
Yeah.
The small pieces that you build over time. Because I think one of the big misperceptions in the kind of investing world is that, women are just not confident.
Yeah.
And that's why they're not investing.
Right.
Women are not confident. And I think we have really that kind of upside down, that kind of notion of confidence. Like we think about leaders, for example, going back to a leadership conversation, like, oh, these people had so much confidence and that's why they become leaders. I'm like, no, actually, I think it's the other way around.
Right.
In the sense that confidence is not the prerequisite. It's the outcome. It's the outcome of action. And so in some sense, action is the thing that breeds confidence. And I'm not talking big actions. It's exactly what you said, getting up 15 minutes earlier. And when it comes to investing, it may mean starting to create an emergency fund or making an appointment with a financial planner or investing your first $10, right? It's all of these small actions that really add up and build the confidence. And so, I like to think about it in that sense, like, just the fact that you don't wait for somehow confidence to magically come, and you're not going to get confident by reading, 10 investment books. Like you're going to gain confidence by creating these small actions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually, like in the broader sense, I think we are all innately confident.
Yes.
When somebody has a confidence issue, invariably to my mind, it's a safety issue every time, right? It's, I don't feel safe in the room that I'm in. And therefore now the best thinking part of my brain is going to go offline and I'm in a stress response and I don't know I'm in a stress response, right? But to your point, then the way that if we're looking at something like building confidence in investing, it's creating safety. So like anything that we want to try that we're not doing right now, how do we make it safer for like almost just be a little bit more gentle with ourselves, right?
Yes.
Like women couldn't even have bank accounts 50 years ago, for goodness sake.
Exactly. Or credit cards.
Right?
Yeah. In their own name. Yeah.
Right. Like, so give ourselves grace. We are the way we are for good reason.
Yes.
And the only thing that's going to shift it is us choosing to shift it. Exactly right.
And I think we are living in a pivotal moment for that.
I think so too. Yeah.
And it is our opportunity to really grasp
I love that so much. And we are like, I know that some things are less than desirable for women in the world right now still,
Yes,
but I'm actually very excited. I don't feel like we've had a moment quite like this before
I agree.
where women are as informed as we are, where we're actually realizing how much real tangible value
Yes.
we bring in the world, tiny thing like birthing all of humanity.
So true.
Just tiny footnote
Yes.
over here. But tell me, Sylvia, to sort of close us out, what's one thing that you wish that you had known sooner in your career? Is there something?
There are many things. I'm just trying to decide which one. I think it's really, for me, not setting this expectation of perfection. And that's kind of related to kind of earlier in my career where I turned down a great job because I didn't check all those boxes or didn't feel, and really what I was really doing is like, oh, I'm not the perfect person for this job because I didn't check all 10 boxes. I only got like 8.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in everything that I do is like, you can't wait until you get it perfect because there's no such thing.
No.
And I think that applies in many, and it's particularly applies, I think, to women who, we're all perfectionists. Like we really try to shoot, shoot for everything. And just realizing that, hey, there isn't such thing. Like it's really more of a journey as opposed to one and done. And if you are making progress towards that, that's really the best that can be.
Yeah, goodness. You will, well, I'm sure you can imagine how many times I've actually ended up coaching women to accept a job that they've been offered, that they're worried that they are underqualified for.
I wish I had you at that time, Ruth.
Or like they're worried about how good the offer is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, but if they're paying me this much, then what does that mean? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But
the expectation's too high.
Woo! Oh my goodness, this was such a delight. And I just know that there is so much usefulness in this conversation. Like, thank you for owning your journey with us. Thank you for saying that you didn't want leadership. Because, like, if we're going to get the number of women that I would like us to have in leadership, the ones of us that are like, I don't really want leadership, like, we need you, babe. Sorry, this is the phone is ringing right now and it's for you.
Exactly. No, I've enjoyed this conversation so much, Ruth. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And if people want to find you, Sylvia, what's the best way for them to do that? I respect that you have an incredibly busy role, but if people do want to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best ways are probably through LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and also Ellevest. Follow Ellevest on LinkedIn. We have a ton of content sort of in this area. We talk about Wealthcare all the time. That's a great place. Come to our website, ellevest.com. If you are looking to get more clarity, I would say, with a financial plan, you're welcome to book a complimentary consultation with one of our financial advisors as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This was honestly such a precious gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you for being here. If you have liked this episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear some of what we were talking about. Go and check out our other episodes, and then also head over to ourtimetobloom.com to find out more about Bloom and how you can get involved.